Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamara Nambiar, and I will be introducing Deepika Padukone. As a celebrity, the choices she made every day were subjected to public controversy and criticism. Nonetheless, she always managed to stay strong and poised. Her formula was be authentic, be yourself. Deepika, I have a few questions for you. When I grew up, I wanted to become an artist, a scientist, and a singer. When I read your story, you were a great badminton player but chose to become an actor. How did you choose from an actor and a badminton player?
You know, the same way that you want to be an artist and a scientist? How do you feel? You can achieve both, right? You feel like if you set your heart on something, you can do that. And then you want to do something else, and you can do that too. So honestly, when I was growing up, even before I realized, I started playing professional badminton. But it's when I was a teenager, I realized that maybe this is not something that I want to continue and pursue and play professionally. And every time I watched a movie, somehow I felt like that's where I belonged. So it's my gut that told me that I wanted to transition from being an athlete to being an actor. And then I followed my gut. You know what gut is? Like your instinct, like that voice inside you that tells you what is right and what is wrong. That.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How are you?
Thanks for in full disclosure, that's my daughter, and that's the longest she's listened to anyone. Can you guys hear me? The guys have said no, it's a good thing. Okay, let me try. Oh, that works. Thank you. Next, can we have Anuradha Paul, the role model, and the question that's going to be posed to her is by Anya.
What happened to the organ?
Can I see? Please, can I see? Sure. You just stay here.
Namaste. Namaskar. Oh my gosh.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anya Ibrahim, and I've written for this book. Today, I have the honor of introducing Anuradha Pal. Her chosen journey was filled with roadblocks. She encountered discrimination for being a woman, trying to master a masculine instrument, skepticism for being young, and resistance for not hailing from a musical family. But Anuradha was not deterred. She was relentless with her discipline, training, and confidence. And I truly admire that. I have a question for Miss Anuradha Pal, if I may. Even though I'm 12, I have very little time. I have to study, play a sport, and learn music. And I'm always being told to do more with my time. You have done so much. How do you do it?
Firstly, I don't think I've done so much. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much for this great honor and privilege meeting you, ma'am. Not you. That was deliberate. Well, you know, the one most important thing that I learned, since there's a paucity of time, I'm going straight to the point. When I went through all the discrimination, the one thing I learned was not to listen to that negativity, to focus on my goal, to focus on what I wanted to do, what my heart was telling me to do. And I knew that ultimately my passion will will do the talking. And so when I went through that journey, I was dismissed at every point. I was discriminated, but my parents egged me on. Though I don't come from a musician family, they were kind enough to encourage that passion. And also, my gurus, Ustad Alar Khan, Zakir Hussain, set such exacting standards, and they basically were so uncompromising. I'll tell you a little short, an incident. I was just 15 years old when Ustad Zakir Hussain asked me to accompany him on a concert tour. And so we were traveling, and the moment I was so excited, he called me at night and he said, "What are you doing in the morning?" And I said, "What am I doing? Getting up in the morning." So, so he said, "Meet me at the airport." And I went to the airport, and he had a flight ticket for him for Jaipur. And he said, "Go off to sleep." I said, "But I'm so excited, I'm traveling with you." So he said, "Well, just go to sleep." And the first thing I learned was, he said, "You're going to travel all your life, you're going to need rest. The moment you have an opportunity, go to sleep." Okay. Then I reached there, and we did this grueling tour. I was put through a drill of lots of practice and all that. Of course, earlier I had gone through 10 hours of Chilla, which is called 10 hours of practice every day for 40 days, which I followed as a routine from the time I was in school. Because I wanted to ramp up before I learn from such great gurus. And so when I went on with Zakir Bhai, he tells me that, tomorrow you're going to play a concert with, you play the concert and I'm going back to Bombay. And I said, "But there are going to be eggs on my face, if I play instead of you." So he said, "Okay, stay up all night." And there was a Kathak dancer, and he said, "Sit up all night and practice with her." And I did. In this little room, I was locked up in this little room with no guidance from the master, nothing, no word. And all I had to do was learn from the beginning, whatever I had to do. The next day I performed, I kept practicing, and he kept saying he's leaving, but he didn't. Finally, in the evening, when it was time for the performance, he says, "You know what? You're not playing with the dancer, but you're playing with me." I said, "Oh, wow, great. Thanks for letting me know a whole night I was practicing with the dancer, but that's fine." So when I get to the stage, I said, "So what are you going to play?" So he said, "What's your age?" I said, "I'm 15. So, okay, so we'll play 15 beats. I said, No. I'm 16, because 16 beats is a little easier to play." So he said, "No, now the damage is done. You said you're 15, play it." And I was put right into the drill. I had never learned that tal in my life, but I was put straight into the thing, and I played. By God's blessing, I somehow managed. But there was one point where I think I didn't do as well as he expected. Obviously, I was so scared. So he put me through a huge punishment, and the punishment was go up and down all the stairs and all the things. Anyway, it was a very bad punishment. So that was one thing that I learned, how to be quick-witted that day. I learned to be quick-witted, how to be adapting to the situation. And it helped me when I play with all the great maestros now that I play with since I've been 13. I've been playing with all the great maestros, been performing since I was 10. But that helped me a lot. So I think putting yourself to that grill and making sure that you actually surrender to learning does help. Also, I think, of course, there were many incidences like that sometimes, and through my college days, I was doing crazy things. I had a very, very crazy schedule when I was in school. By the way, to answer your question, I used to get up at 5, practice, go to school, come back at 3:30. From 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, do my homework and studies. No time to play, no time to rest, no time to do anything. 6 o'clock, leave for my gurus, 7 to 10, they're all the way from Juhu to Nepean Sea Road, travel and come, and till 11 o'clock at night, go back to my house, again the next day the same drill. So I think all these things, so I personally believe that hard work and really, really focusing and being determined about what you want to achieve is really, really important and is the driving force. What also, so I mean, when you say how did I manage my time? Yes, the most important thing I would say I learned from my father was how to multitask, how to completely be focused and disciplined about everything, orderliness, timeliness, punctuality, being able to do many things. So I think all these things really, really matter. And incidentally, last, just to tell you on a very personal note, it was 2017 was a very bad year because I lost 5 family members. And in 2016, when my father got an epileptic seizure, it was just 3 hours before a major concert that I had. And when I was wheeling him into the ICU, he kept saying, go to your concert. Focus on your goal, okay? 2017, when he passed away, 3 days after that, I had a concert right here at the Sophia Bhabha Hall. And my mother came to encourage me in the concert 3 days after. Last night, I had to take my mother to the ICU. I just was up all night in the hospital looking after her, and I've just come straight from the hospital here. And the only thing she told me yesterday is, you're not going to break your commitment. You're going to stand by what you did, and that is the true meaning of being a professional. These days, people think being a professional is about how you earn money. I don't think so. I think it's about how committed and dedicated you are to whatever your art is or whatever your passion is. And it's about making sure that you stand by your word and become a person of character. And that's what I truly believe is important to be able to achieve one's goals.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuradha, and we wish your mom all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
For the next role model, let's have Moksha come up here, and she's going to pose her question to Brinda Somaya.
Hi everyone, my name is Moksha Davalor. I'm 12 years old and I have the honor of introducing our guest, Miss Brinda Somaya. So here are a couple excerpts from her story in the book. Brinda Somaya is an architect. She designs buildings. Brinda is also an urban conservationist. She protects the spaces around the new structures that she builds. In 2001, Brinda turned her attention to Badali, a little village in Gujarat that was demolished by an earthquake. Was it possible to rebuild the village exactly the way it was before the disaster? Yes, it was. Brinda did just that. So I had the honor and the opportunity to write Miss Somaya's story, and despite all my research, we came up with a couple questions for her. The first one being, I live in the US and I know you studied there, so what made you decide to move back to India and to set up your architectural firm here? And secondly, what made you decide to work publicly and volunteer to build and restore public spaces?
Well, I was just waiting outside, and one of the gentlemen there told me that I'm well dotted. So it's great to be here, and I would like to first congratulate the 3 women, Lakshmi, Reema, and Sharda, for bringing out a book for children, because this is something we all want to do and need to do desperately. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a different generation from some of the young ladies sitting here. I was in America those days. It was the 70s and 80s, and many people who went there at that time never returned. A lot of my classmates, a lot of young people, we all know that. I remember studying there, and one summer I was at Cornell Summer School, where I'm now happen to be a professor. And I spent the whole afternoon with a whole lot of Indian professors and their wives having lunch. And they spent the whole hour or two talking about India. And I saw myself maybe 20 years from then doing the same thing. And that's not what I wanted to do. I certainly did not want to be peripheral to any society in which I lived. So I had actually got admission to another master's degree. I went home. I went back to my university, and I called my mother and said, I'm coming home. And no regrets, because I think to live and work, in a country as rich in its culture, in its diversity, in its language, in its food, in its art and its culture, and feel that you are part of it. To me, that's the most important thing. And that's why I came home.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to round up the panel, can I have Kavya come up here and pose a question to, who are we posing the question to? Dr. Seema Rao. Dr. Seema Rao, please. Thank you.
Namaste to everyone. I'm Kavya Tavalor and I'm here to introduce Dr. Seema Rao. Seema Rao, first Indian woman commando trainer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here is a passage from her story in the book. As a child, Seema was bullied. She would cringe with a mixture of helplessness and revolt, hoping for a strength that would put her on par with the bullies. Years later, after she became a medical doctor and married, her husband introduced her to martial arts. She embraced it and began her transformation from weakness to strength. Dr. Seema Rao, I have 2 questions for you.
Yes, what are they?
Number 1, I'm 8 years old and I've seen many kids being bullied.
Okay.
I've also experienced it myself. From your story, I know that you were bullied. Can you tell me and all the other kids out there about it? Question number 2.
Yeah. Okay. First and foremost, let me say that I'm extremely happy to be here with you wonderful people. And otherwise, my life is all about commando training. I'm India's first and only woman commando trainer. Yes, I train men commandos. And thank you. And I go to the nook and corner of the country. I go to ice-clad mountains, scorching hot deserts, and dense jungles, and I train the commandos. So if you look at me, you'll wonder how I reached commando training. Well, it was not my life's design to be there. We all believe in destiny, so that's what destiny had something else in mind for me. So I started off as a doctor, but ended up training commandos of the Indian forces. I'm going to talk about my childhood because I think, certain incidents in our life change the way we think and change what we want to become. One of the incidents was way back in school. What's your age?
8.
8. I must have been about 8 or 9 years old when there was an incident in school that, changed me. There were these, girls in our class, and they were, ones who had failed the class. So they were about 2 years elder to all of us. So one day, what those girls did is they, lit some firecrackers under the desk, and one of the girls' uniform caught fire. And everybody ran helter-skelter, and there was only this girl whose uniform caught fire, and obviously she was hospitalized. And everybody was asked in the class that who was responsible for this. Nobody owned up. Now, the thing is that I am also the daughter of a freedom fighter. I was very close to my father. So I think a certain degree of righteousness is, what I had inside me, which I realized when this incident happened, and, I realized that I was the only one to tell, the staff, the teachers, that it was these girls who were responsible for that incident. Nobody else said anything, but I was the only one. I was afraid, there's no doubt about that, but somewhere I thought it was just unjust, and I thought that, people who are responsible for doing harm to somebody else should be taken to task. So that was what happened then, and of course I paid the price for that because, about a few days later, my exams were around the corner. Those girls were taken to task and they were punished. So they had to get back. So one day when the school left and we were all leaving the classroom, I was the last one to get out. And these girls cornered me in the corridor. They caught hold of my hands. They pulled my bag. They removed my journal and they tore it to pieces in front of my eyes. Now, when you're the studious type and you see your journal being torn and the exam round the corner and you know that it's going to cost you your marks. So I looked at them with disbelief, tears in my eyes, and I couldn't do anything about that. And I still remember that helplessness that I felt at that time. Years later, I would like to tell you about another incident, but this was, when I was about 17 or 18 years old. So I met this young Dr. Male. He was into martial art, and then that's when I realized that if I had to change from weakness to strength, then this was one way I could do that. So I started learning from him, and there was this incident which again changed me forever. We used to live in Chowpatty, very close by, so we used to go to the beach and we used to practice martial art. Let me say that we are a very, very bonded couple. In fact, in the forces, people call us the ideal buddy pair. The ideal buddy pair is a concept where two people are that close that I can trust my back and that nobody is going to shoot from there because of him, and the same with him. So coming back to the story, so we were training over there on the beach, and it was about 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a hot, sunny day. And the beach was getting empty. It was time for us to go back. When suddenly there were a group of these, rat pickers who were passing by. And they happened to look down and see what we were doing. And they started passing lewd, demeaning remarks at me. We decided to just ignore them, continue with the training. And once we got off, they were standing at a distance, and we had to pass by from that route. So my husband said that, okay, now that those guys are there, you're going to have to face them. And saying this, he moved out of that place. I think that was very important. I thank him for that, because I think that day I decided, or I learned to fight my own battles. As I walked towards them, I was very scared. So I decided that maybe I'll just walk across and finish with the whole thing. And suddenly one of the guys came and stood in front of me. I was looking down and he was in front of me. I moved to the left, he moved in front of me. I moved to the right, he moved in front of me again. So he was obstructing my path. I was looking down and I was very scared. And slowly I looked up at him. And what I saw in his eyes, I did not like. I saw underestimation. I saw the look as if, you're just a woman. What can you do? You're weak. You can't harm me. And, I don't know what came over me, but I lifted my hand and I slapped him across the face. He got extremely enraged. He came back at me, okay, and he tried to headbutt me, tried to hit his head into my face. Luckily, I just bent down and I lifted my knee high up, and he got a hard shot on his head. In the meanwhile, the other guy who was with him, he came towards me. He opened up a knife and slashed it across my body. Thankfully for my reflexes, I just moved out. My t-shirt tore, but not my skin. I was enraged. I grabbed his hand and I just threw him down on the ground. Soon there were other people who came there, and the rest is history. But what I want to say here is that bullying is a very common thing that happens to all of us, I think. But personally, I didn't want to be on the receiving end of that. I was weak, there's no doubt about that. But I decided that that equation had to change. I couldn't stay weak forever. So I wanted that equation to change. And later on, of course, my life has been full of a lot of hardships, 2 near-fatal injuries during the 20 years of training the forces, and bankruptcy, and not wanting to have my own biological child, a lot of all that stuff. But let me say one thing at the end of the day, if you're happy with what you do, and if you face adversity, looking at it, eye to eye, then that is what makes all the difference.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Rao. Thanks, Kavya. So that gives you an indication of how inquisitive kids' minds are. And what I'd love to do next is to stitch that up with a personal favorite story of mine. And I hope this dazzles you as much as it dazzled me, and then we can get into a discussion with you guys as to what you think, how fair or unfair the world has been. I do want to start with a disclaimer that my job in this panel is to bring the law of averages of some power-hitting women out here down a bit, because that's what I do.